Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Tuesday the 22nd of July 2025. In today's episode, we cover Venezuela's accusations against El Salvador, upcoming Russia-Ukraine peace talks, and the UK's sanctions against enablers of smuggling gangs. But first, the Trump administration's battle with the US Federal Reserve continues. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has called for an inquiry into the entire Federal Reserve institution, becoming the latest figure in the Trump administration to publicly criticize the US central bank. It adds to an ongoing feud between US President Donald Trump and the Federal Reserve, with Trump last week asking a group of Republican lawmakers during an Oval Office meeting whether he should sack the bank's chair, Jerome Powell, for not moving faster on lowering interest rates. While Trump later said he had no plans to sack Powell unless he needed to, quote, leave for fraud, he also said that almost every one of the lawmakers he met last week thought Powell should be removed before his current 4-year term ends in May 2026. In a post on X on Tuesday, Bessent wrote, "Significant mission creep and institutional growth have taken the Fed into areas that potentially jeopardize the independence of its core monetary policy mission." He also urged the bank to undertake, publish, and implement a comprehensive institutional review across its entire mission to buttress its credibility. It follows comments earlier this month by the director of the US Office of Management and Budget, who accused Powell of mishandling what he called an ostentatious $2.5 billion refurbishment of the Fed's headquarters in Washington, D.C. The Fed Inspector General is currently reviewing the renovation, which involves an overhaul of 2 buildings and is $700 million over budget. Whilst at the moment it seems unlikely that Trump will remove Powell as Fed chair, if he were to do so, economists expect that the stock market and confidence in the US economy would take a major hit, including a weakening of the dollar. You're listening to TLDR's Daily Briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's other channels. Today, we released videos on whether Eurobonds could replace US Treasuries and whether MAGA is turning on Trump. You can find those videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube or Nebula. Venezuela has announced an investigation into claims that migrants deported from the US to El Salvador were tortured in its 40,000 capacity mega prison. It will investigate El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele, as well as the country's justice minister and the head of prisons. It comes after a prisoner swap took place on Friday between Venezuela, the US, and El Salvador. More than 250 Venezuelan nationals who were deported from the US to El Salvador in March were then returned to Venezuela in exchange for 10 US citizens held in Venezuelan jails. At a press conference, Venezuela's Attorney General, Tarek William Saab, said the deportees had experienced systemic abuse inside the Salvadoran prison and presented images appearing to show migrants with bruises and missing teeth. Venezuela has also called on the International Criminal Court, or ICC, the UN Human Rights Council, and other bodies in the Americas to investigate. However, Venezuela is itself under investigation by the ICC for similar allegations of torturing prisoners and denying them access to legal representation. Ukraine and Russia will hold a new round of peace talks in Istanbul on Wednesday, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It comes after US President Donald Trump pledged to send new weapons to Ukraine and threatened Russia with severe sanctions if no ceasefire is agreed within 50 days. A Turkish government spokesperson has said that the new round of talks will take place in the same venue as previous negotiations in May and June, which led to a series of prisoner exchanges but failed to work towards a ceasefire. Finally, the UK government has announced sanctions on anyone involved in assisting illegal immigration, including corrupt foreign officials such as border guards or police officers who take bribes from people smugglers. From Wednesday, anyone who facilitates illegal immigration will face asset freezes and a ban on travelling to the UK. The sanctions will also target those who produce fake passports and middlemen who transfer cash on behalf of criminal gangs. The measures were announced by UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy on Tuesday as part of the government's push to smash the gangs. It follows legislation being introduced under the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, which is currently under scrutiny at the House of Lords, to increase police enforcement powers to investigate and prosecute people smugglers. That's all for today's episode. We'll be back with you on Thursday as we're busy packing magazines tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, you can actually buy a copy of Too Long by heading to toolong.news and listen to our podcasts for a special discount code. You'll find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR news production hosted and written by Georgina Findlay and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again on Thursday.